Muraga is an absolute beast of a man and is the next selection quest unit to come to War of the Visions. While his massive attack stat and even bigger axe make him seem like quite the attacker, his kit actually suggests that he'll be more of a tank and bruiser. So honestly, I can't really imagine Muraga ever protecting anybody, but that's besides the point. Let's take a look at his kit and figure out how he's going to fit your team. Muraga is an 80 cost Earth Element unit with the new job Savage King. He also has the Paladin and Ninja subjobs, and he can wield axes as well as equip armor, helms, and accessories for his equipment. Now, Muraga's TMR is an axe, and it has a very high attack at 203. It also gives you 25 initial AP, and I think that's one of the better TMR weapons out there. So if you're looking to use bells on someone else, I'd legitimately try this axe out on Muraga, and after a few TP skills, he's going to be loaded up to go to town with some of his action abilities. So Muraga's master ability will give the typical Earth boost to himself and other Earth units, but he'll also get 20% attack for himself. We can take a look at Muraga's stats, but really the only things to mention is that he has a high HP, but it's not at tank levels. It's actually about 1,300 below, our typical tanks. His attack is also very high at 608, but he actually has no way to buff that aside from his counter ability. And then otherwise his agility is fine at 62, and he has some innate defense as well. Now, if we want to take a look at 115 versus 120, we can see the stats aren't huge, 244 HP and then 65 attack. Now, because he's a bruiser, because we want to push that attack stat because he doesn't get attack buffs, because we want him to take damage, again, this is a situation where stats count. Every single point counts. So you do want that 65 attack, you do want that 244 HP. But if it's not a big deal for you and you want to think about his job level 25 skill, I still think that skill is solid as well. And we'll take a look at it in just a little bit. So he is a candidate for the full 120 upgrade, but his shards are free from the selection quest, so it's not so bad. It's just a matter of the blossoms. Muraga is weak to wind and strong against lightning, and he has a positive 10% slash and strike resist, though those are good places to start at. That's okay. However, he has no pierce resist, he has no missile resist, and he has a negative 10% magic resist. Now, negative 10 magic resist isn't terrible. Like, there's worse magic resists out there, but obviously there's some work to be done if he's going to survive an attack from Helena. We're going to break down Muraga's kit next, and just a reminder that I'm not going to go through every single old ability from other kits if I don't think that they're particularly useful, but I will go over his entire new kit. So Muraga's going to get one new passive. It's called Barbarian Proof, and this will give you 20% HP while decreasing your evasion rate by 10. And that's kind of important because now Earth evasion is something that we are looking at with Zazan and Katone, so you might want to skip this ability if you're going to try to do any sort of evasion on him, but a 20% HP boost is a pretty big deal. He also has access to Holy Knight's protection for some more HP and some more defense, and then Shadowrunner will give him some more agility and luck. Again, if you want to go to the evade route, then Shadowrunner is really going to help you out there as well. Now, Shukuchi is always worth looking at depending on your plan and also the current PvP maps, but even more so with Muraga, he's a very short range unit, so Shukuchi might be pretty necessary for him getting into the mix. As for counters, there's two that we're going to look at. Snake Grudge is a new counter for Muraga, and it has a nice 30% proc chance, and it's going to increase his attack by 30%. So this is the only attack buff on his kit, so you might want to put this on if you think, if you have no trouble with him surviving, then you definitely want him to get this little boost whenever he can. However, if you want him to go full bruiser, we have Paladin's Guard. It's classic, big reduction for physical damage, definitely a solid choice. Now let's take a look at the main skills for Savage King. First up is Shield Breaking Axe. This is a bread and butter skill that's also going to break physical barriers. It has a little tiny range. Then we have Demon Snake Stance, which is going to give 15 defense and spirit as well as 20 defense penetration. However, this is going to reduce Muraga's healing power by 20%, but that also affects how much healing he gets from other people, and he does have a skill that's going to heal himself as well. So I think that, that's actually a pretty big deal. However, However, if you're not planning on running a healer, then it's not a big deal. So an EX job enhancement is also going to make the defense buff go from 15 to 25, and it grants an extra cast of the skill. So I really like that the skill gives spirit. I think that's awesome that they did that. That's a nice touch compared to other physical tanking units. So we also have Devil, which is a whirlwind AoE that hits the squares surrounding Muraga. It has a 43% magic break on it, and it also cancels ability activation. So this is a very powerful skill if Muraga can get close enough to use it on anyone that's casting or anyone that's a magic user in general. We also have Throwing an Axe, which is just whatever the Google Translate gave us here, which increases Human Killer for 3 turns by 30%. That's a very important buff for Muraga, and it has a 165% potency. This also has some diagonal range, although not that far, but I'm not really complaining because Muraga needs some help in that department. Then we have Snake King Break, which will increase Muraga's slash resist penetration by 30% just for that attack. It's also going to deal a large 200% potency, and then it has a 25% chance to inflict slow, which is a pretty deadly stats effect. This skill is further upgraded with his EX job to decrease its AP cost from 28 to 22. So this skill is very powerful, but the range is just 1 square, so it's going to be difficult to use, but it's definitely going to be one of his biggest attacks on the kit. We also have Fainted, which is Muraga's job level 25 skill, and it has a nice 165 potency and a 25% chance to stun the target. So the cool part about this skill is that it has piercing, so it can hit multiple targets. If Muraga targets somebody on the 3rd square, it's going to hit anybody in those first 2 squares as well, and then possibly stun, 1 or more targets. So Muraga is low on AoEs in his kit, so this could be useful for him if you're needing to get more AoEs. Now, taking a look at the sub skills, we have Desperate. It's a new TP skill that's going to consume 15% of Muraga's HP to give him 100% debuff resistance for 3 turns. That's right, immunity to all debuffs. The downside is that you're going to have a 25% chance to berserk yourself when you use it, and this makes a case for Muraga's Faith to be at 30. It eliminates the chance of using bells, but you don't really want to berserk yourself. Now, Fate is a small potency 3 square sweep attack that absorbs HP, so this has a lot of potential to heal Muraga unless you have Demon Snake Stance active and his healing is reduced. Now, I want to quickly mention that Muraga does not have a limit burst, which is a shame. It's the same that as all the other Suction Quest units, they're not going to have limit bursts, but I bet the animation would have been really cool for Muraga, so I wish I could have seen that. Muraga also has Paladin and Ninja sub-jobs, and there's a few skills that we should talk about. Sentinel is always worth mentioning because it's going to be really big for Muraga to approach enemies and not take nearly as much damage. Taunting Blade is also going to be Muraga's longest range attack, but also his best AoE, and it's going to be one of his strongest attacks. So if you are using this though, you would want bells, and if you are using Taunting Blade, he's going to engage much quicker than if he didn't have it on, and that would affect, how many TP skills he's going to be using. Immortal Spirit is again solid to help him approach the enemy, and then Divine Grace has that small application of giving Muraga a team buff to help control his AI if that's what you need. For Ninja, we have Doton to provide a non-typed attack, and then also give some range, both distance and diagonally for Muraga. Decider of Fate is a great anti-evade skill in manual play, and then Dream Within a Dream is going to help Muraga chain with your Earth and or slash units. Compared to other tanks, Muraga has high attack and agility, but his HP, defensive buffs, and hate generation are definitely lacking. He's not meant to be like your solid tank like King Mont, Wall, Charlotte. He's going to be more of someone that can hold hate so that the rest of your team doesn't die, but he's going to deal more damage and he is pretty fast. Compared to other attackers, Muraga is going to have trouble with AoE, he doesn't have much range at all, and he has no attack buffs to speak of. Muraga's 608 attack stat is actually very misleading, and we're going to use Summer Kilfei as an example. She has a 494 attack buff, but she gets 60% attack from self-sacrifice and 40% attack from a TP skill in battle. So her base attack is also 60 points higher than Muraga's, and she has an innate 40% defense penetration. So what this means is that while just on paper she looks like she's weaker than Muraga, she's actually significantly stronger than him. And I'm bringing her up because she's an axe user that we might get soon. Now, it might feel like I'm just picking on Muraga. He is a free unit after all, but I did want to just illustrate that a high attack stat isn't going to make a unit all on its own, and you have to dive a little bit deeper to get all of the information. Let's talk pros and cons for Muraga. His pros are that he has a high attack value, even if it is difficult to supplement it. He's got utility, barrier breaking, ability canceling. He can slow and stun enemies, and he can buff his defense and avoid any debuffs. The Paladin subjob is going to help here a lot. So he really is a mix of a tank and an attacker. He is a true bruiser, and we don't think we've had a unit like that for a while. So that's kind of exciting. As for the cons, he has a very short range, and you have to get range from his subjobs, and even then it's very costly. So his utility is on his short range skills. So while he might be able to attack at range with his subjob skills, he won't be able to do all like the stuff that his kit wants to do until he gets into a little bit closer. He's also locked into slash attacks except for Doton, which you probably won't have on because you're going to be using Taunting Blade as well as things like Sentinel and Immortal Spirit. And then he has no evade skill on the ninja sub, and I really would have liked to see that, but maybe that would have been too much. And then finally, his resists are lackluster. I think that, while he's going to be able to stack some defensive stats, without those resists and some good starting points, as the meta shift, he's going to be right out of it, depending if we move on from slash to other things. Definitely weak to magic, that's all very concerning. So how good is Muraga? I think he's going to be a solid bruiser in this meta. His kit seems to want Shikuchi equipped so that he can get to his enemies ASAP, but with Taunting Blade, you could just use bells and then engage earlier and grab that hate. However, without Taunting Blade on Muraga, he's going to take longer to engage, but then he might use Immortal Spirit, Snake Stance, Sentinel, and he could be a true bruiser. Now it's just going to be a toss-up between whether you want him to actively have that hate or if you just want him to be running at your opponents. I'd also like to try him in an Earth Evade team even though he doesn't have Utsu Semi, but I think with Zazan and Katone then, he could just be that unit that sure he's taking damage, but maybe he has hate and then their other units are just evading AoEs because they are the evadey ones. So I think there's lots of applications for him, but it's going to take a lot of testing to figure out where he fits. So Muraga's not going to be game-breaking, but he is worth looking at, especially if you need a cloud counter in the future, just because he has that elemental advantage and a little bit of slash resist. He's also just going to beat up on Cloud with his big old axe. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to see you all in the next one, but before I go, I'll just remind you can comment below to let me know what you think about Muraga, if you think he's worth building at all. And you can also talk to me about that on Discord. The link to join that is in the description for this video. And then if you don't mind, consider subscribing to the channel to support me and to see when the next content's coming out. So that's it. We'll see you all next time.